Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, everyone in the Ladies Lounge and beyond. I'm here with my beautiful friend and co-creator, Lady Viv, as usual.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Lady Viv. And we have a very, very special guest, a guest that, I feel like I want to cry. This is going to be good. We've just kicked off our Wealthy Wednesdays with Men, which is a series that we're doing all about men. And our first man guest is the beautiful Sul, who I am very lucky to have in so many parts of my world. So welcome, Sul.
Thank you. I didn't know I was the first. How did I get so lucky? Thanks for having me, ladies.
The first, and I would say probably the best, but I'm probably a little bit biased.
And I might be a little tinsy bit biased too.
So welcome. We are pretty excited about this little adventure into men, talking about men from a lady's perspective, but also giving ladies a bit of an insight into a man's world, and also, you know, the kind of men that we like to play with anyway. So, yeah.
And a warm welcome to our Facebook users. We can't see your names, but thank you for joining us too, because my whole thing with this was, I love men. I really enjoy men. And I'm curious as to what makes them tick, you know, because to me, men are very uncomplicated. And as a kid, I used to love hanging out with guys much more than girls. And I only had probably 2 or 3 really, really close girlfriends, and the rest of my friends are male friends. And as I got to understand more about humanoid men and women, I'm like, I get it now. I get the ease and the simplicity and the uncomplicatedness of men. But I think more so when we talk about humanoid men, there's a whole other dimension that really lights me up. And Sul has been a major inspiration for me. And I know we've had a few conversations and a few acknowledgements too, Sul, how much you have invited me to see a very different possibility within the male kingdom, or, you know, whatever you want to call that, the gentleman's world. And thank you. I just wanted to say that before we started. I'm so grateful for you jumping on board, and because we don't know where this conversation's going, we don't pre-record these things. It's just we follow the energy of what's up, and I'm very grateful to know you and consider you a very dear friend and a fellow inspirator. So thank you for being you.
Oh, thanks, Viv. That's lovely.
I love how you said the man kingdom, like you would say the animal kingdom. Because I think we all know that, and, you know, similarly, myself always had a lot more ease being around, you know, males than females. And Viv and I have probably talked about that a bit in here before. But the man, you know, the man kingdom, you know, because we are different creatures in a lot of ways, and we're not as well. But we also want to sort of highlight some of the differences and celebrate some of our differences as well, and also look at how can we play and have more fun together as ladies and as gentlemen, while really honoring each other and seeing what can be created greater. So
yes, I would love to ask Sul a question, because when Tiff and I were looking at how this creation wanted to show up, it was like we had probably 5 or 6 gents' names pinged straight away as to who we would love to have with us in the Ladies Lounge. And when I was looking at the names, sometimes the information comes through to me really quickly as to, you know, what they uniquely have and what I receive from them. And with Sul, I looked at his world and went, from my perspective, from what I see of you, Sul, you're a father, you're a partner to Tiffany, you've got your own business, and you also have your own reality as well. So, you know, I often see you going for a ride on your motorbike, or you're going for a surf, and you travel overseas. You know, Tiff and Silas might stay home. How did you choose that? Like, was it always that easy to have all of those components working? Did you have to kind of work to find, okay, how's this going to work now? I'm a father and I'm in a relationship and I have a business. Like, How is that for you? How did you create that without losing you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think initially I definitely felt bad pretty much every time I went and did something like that. I was like, I probably shouldn't be doing this, or but I guess it was a process with I would say, myself and Tiffany of like really also making sure that we were still choosing things that were fun for us and that worked for us. Because you have a relationship and you tend to make it about each other, and then you add a child into the mix and it's like you tend to make it all about the child. And I guess it's just really important to include you in that in that computation as well. And I guess just really using the tools of access, like Gary Douglas talks about choice forever and ever and ever. And it's like, I just knew that if I wouldn't choose that stuff for myself, no one else was going to make it happen. So, it's like you kind of need to choose what works for you and know that it will usually work out best for everyone when you do.
And to begin with, did you choose that, like you said, oh, I felt a bit bad or whatever? So to begin with, did you choose it from a place of including Tiffany and Silas? Or was it, I've got to do this and I don't know how to do this, so fuck it, I'm just going to go and do it? Or how was that?
I think there was definitely a bit of that in the beginning. Like I can remember times where, there would be a class that I really wanted to go to and I would be like, I'm going. And Tiff would be like, what do you mean you're going? Like, aren't I coming? And I'm like, oh, if you're coming, then awesome, come. But I'm definitely going. And it was kind of that thing of demanding in my world that I was going to be there, like, no matter what. And happy for like her and Silas to like come along for the ride, or I take Silas, or however that would work out. But just really being like, okay, this is what I'm choosing, and would you like to come? And I think it was very uncomfortable for us both to start with. Like I felt like I was choosing against Tiffany, and I think for Tiffany there was this stuff of like, you're not like including me, or being felt left out. But essentially, I think we both also started to choose more of that for ourselves, where we had the freedom to go, hey, I'm going to go and do this. You can come if you like. And if you're not, then let's make it work in a different way.
So then, Tiff, how was it for you as well? It's like, in those earlier days of having a relationship and navigating, having these choices in front of you. So how, being a lady, how was it for you at the beginning and how is it now?
Well, I probably wasn't being much of a lady in the beginning. And I think that's the thing, like, for, in our case, and probably for a lot of you guys watching this as well, both of us, when we look back to how we used to be with each other, we would be like always trying to check into each other's worlds, even if it's not with words, but energetically, which is even more, can be even more kind of limiting in a way, because you're constantly like relating yourself to someone else and someone else's reality to try and make decisions that are not going to upset someone or rock the boat or whatever that is. And so when, for Saul, when he started stepping into this stuff more of like, what would I like? Like if I wasn't, when I first met Saul, actually, he was very, very, very shy. And, for him to step more into him, he had to really start to, like he was saying, do these things of going, you know what, I'm doing this. And it almost felt, initially he did have to be a little bit like kind of strong about it for himself. And for me, that felt a little bit like, oh, he doesn't want me to go, and that's all the stuff that was coming up in me. That's none of that was real, He never didn't want me to go, but he was just like, I'm going. And I was like, oh, that means that you don't want me to come because you're not inviting me. And what if it's not about someone else inviting you? What if it's you choosing for you? So him going, I'm doing this thing, and I could go, well, I'm doing that thing too, or not. and still really have all of you and not feel like, you know, you're missing out or someone doesn't like you because they're choosing something, you know, or the way that it looks in terms of what they're choosing.
Yeah, and again, this is from my perspective, watching you guys and knowing you guys fairly well. So you've just been overseas and, you know, taught some classes overseas, and then Tiff, you've been overseas, and then you go together. So is there when Tiffany goes away and you're home with Silas or doing what you're doing, so how is that for you in your world?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. And, you know, I think what's become a little bit more, I guess, like, I've become more aware of these places where it's like we will both kind of like lead in our relationship. Like, so, you know, for example, when we went away, you know, some of the locations we were there were for, Tiffany's work and things that she was choosing and creating. And, you know, I was coming along for the ride. And then the same, you know, when I was doing a class. So it's almost like we have this place where, you know, we lead in different areas, and I think that's been kind of easier than before, of like knowing when to lead and knowing when to follow, and what actually creates the most for everyone. And yeah, I mean, I love being at home, you know, with Silas, and, you know, having that like one-on-one time with him. And, you know, I think we both love spending like time together, and we both love having space and, you know, meeting new people and doing that as well. So it's like, it's, you know, I think getting the best of all of that, you know, it can be available if you're able to have it and choose it. But yeah, I guess you do have to really choose that if that's what you do desire.
Yeah, and that's a great way to explain that too, Saul, because, you know, in Access, with the tools of Access Consciousness, we talk about the kingdom of we, where everybody's included. So, you know, when we make a choice for you or for Silas or Tiffany, if you're making it for you, that you're making it not at the exclusion of the other person, or I'm going to go and do this, but there is that awareness of the inclusion of each other, even if you're going in different directions. And the honoring that goes with that, because I think a lot of relationships lack honor. They don't have that regard for the other person. They're too busy trying to control or be comfortable, or feel it, you know, don't want to feel insecure if somebody goes off because they might do something. It's like that takes a presence within each other. You know, if you've got a good sense of who you are, so you've got a good sense of who you are, and it's, you know, there isn't this need to control or own or dominate or stalk each other. There is that space of freedom to be who you are and to honor that and to encourage that with each other, which, again, it's a choice that you can make within a relationship. And maybe, like you said, it wasn't always like that, but you've actually found a way that this can work, that it is honoring of both of you without either of you giving yourselves up, which, you know, how long do you reckon it took you to get there with the tools?
Well, I mean, you know, I would say it's still something that we're choosing, and, you know, it's yeah, I don't think it's like I guess a destination. But, you know, we were talking before about like how you reference people's, you know, you reference like your partner or your friends or your family, you know, before you choose anything. And I get most of that is kind of like that place where you make choice comfortable. You know, you make the comfortable choice to keep everyone happy, and you don't rock the boat. But I think I'd say what we've noticed is most of the growth and the change, and I guess like the expansion into a different possibility, has come from those choices that are actually really uncomfortable, and they bring stuff up. And, you know, it's not necessarily like easy, but it always tends to have something greater on the other side.
And that takes a lot of courage to do that. It takes a lot of having your own back and being prepared to be uncomfortable. And I know that those periods within my own life, when I do go through that space of uncomfortableness, it's because I am going for something greater. I'm not settling for less. So that is a really critical point, I think, to recognize that when you make a choice, that it's actually going to create something greater, rather than feather the comfort zone.
Yeah, when I know, a lot of people talk about, well, like that's a scary choice, but we also know that if there's like, it could be that you're actually really excited, and it could be that you're actually aware of something, way greater that's available. So I guess, if people have this coming up and kind of back away from it, what if you actually embraced it and kind of stepped into it and see what's on the other side? Like, what's the worst that can happen?
Ruth is asking, did you recognize in each other when you met that these were possibilities for you both, or did it come as a surprise? I have learned not everyone is truly interested in infinite possibility. What would you say to that, our man guest?
I think that's kind of back to what we were talking about before of like the, when to lead, and, also knowing like what someone can receive. Like sometimes you could choose something and then you get the awareness that actually that wasn't that kind, towards this person, or I chose this and it created more, and like, they've stepped into something different as well. So I think it is really that thing of like choice creates awareness, and you don't always get to know before you go, but you definitely will find out what it creates when you choose it. So
yeah. And I think as well, like, to that question, your question, Ruth, and some of the other things that we've been talking about, one of the biggest things for me, and it's funny because I didn't really want this to turn into a relationship conversation, and it kind of has, but one of the big things for me has been the willingness to lose, Saul, at so many different points of this, and it was always the places that I wasn't willing to lose him, where I would stop myself and hold myself back for fear of losing him. And so that was a big one for me. And I remember when we were first together, I mean, do you remember, Saul, when we were first together, in terms of the possibilities that, I was kind of inviting you to, and where you were with those originally, when we first met, you're a little bit like, oh, not sure about this, you crazy lady.
Yeah, I was definitely. Yeah, and you probably ran my bars like, I don't know, maybe 10 times before I, asked for anything else. So it's and that's the thing as well, I think, of like, which I think you're brilliant at, which is being able to like give someone what they're willing to receive until they ask for more. And sometimes that can actually be what creates the most for people who are truly desiring something different. When you have someone that's trying to like push something at you because they know that you can have more, everyone usually just goes, oh, this is like too much, and backs away. But that there's an art in being able to give someone what they can receive, and maybe a little bit more that just invites them, but not so much that they, run away with their tail between their legs.
Whimpering. Yeah, and I also, there was this key moment where I realized, I don't need you to be any different. You know what I mean? Like, I just need him to be him. He's awesome. And, in the earlier stages, I was like, yeah, he may not be willing or choosing to go to the outer edges of the universe with me in the way that I was like, come on, let's go to the outer edges of the universe. And he was like, oh, I'm not sure if I like the outer edges that much. But I was like, you know what? He's amazing and awesome just as he is, which, we talk about this thing of allowance, and it's so huge, really allowing someone to be who they are, especially when it comes to a man, allowing a man to be who he is, be exactly where he is, and not expect any more of him, but still be willing to invite possibilities, but from, that real playful invitation, and being willing to be aware of where someone's at and what they can receive.
And I can say from my own personal experience, this is one of the things I have found the most challenging Just, because the thing is, for most of us, we see this incredible possibility and these incredible capacities and brilliance that everybody else has, and we're walking around going, what are you talking about? And we're going, look behind you, over here. There's this amazing possibility and the capacities and the potencies that people have, and not trying to push people into that, not trying to even coerce them or try and change them, but to truly allow them to have their choice is such an art form and a journey. And I am, for one of the women out there who probably amongst many others say, well, you know what, I have tried to change men. I have actually tried to get them to do what I think they should do because I can see something so much greater, rather than, my God, this guy in front of me is incredible, and receive them for who they are. And that's a comment that my partner made to me in the very early days of us being together. He said, I've never had a woman receive me like you do. And I'm like, what? Hang on a second, so, and it is such an art form to not, for a woman not to. I don't know if guys do this. Do guys do this? Or
do guys do it?
Women?
That's a good question.
I would say definitely. I mean, I just want to acknowledge as well, though, like, it is very rare to to meet a woman or have a woman, like you were saying, Viv, that Andrew had, said to you, of like, I've never had someone like receive me like that. Like that's not a very common thing, like most people are so I guess caught up in their own agenda. They very even rarely have time for, other people or anything like that. So I think, you guys are different, like in that way for sure. And to acknowledge that. And I guess the other thing that you've kind of already been talking about it, but it's like, if you can be grateful for the person in your life, then, you can also have this place where you don't need to have them fulfill everything that you desire in that relationship. There's, friends, there's family, there's, other lovers or, whatever it is, but it's like you can create it however you desire. But yeah, it doesn't have to all come from one person. And if you're grateful for what that person sort of provides and is in your life, then I guess it's easier that way than trying to make them do everything and fulfill everything you want or need.
Yeah, which is a huge expectation. And the moment we have expectations, we then go into projecting. And then when we don't get those fulfilled, we then reject. And where does that create? Where does that
separate? Yeah.
And on that, I guess with like men, I guess I like, for me, I notice like I do that, with sex, and I would say probably quite a lot of men do that in their relationships with their partners. So, I'd say for men and women, there's probably like these different areas where we have, these projections and expectations. Yeah.
Awesome conversation. Thank you, Saul.
There's a couple more questions. So also, I think we wanted to touch on the, do men do that with women thing a little bit? Because I'm like, do they? I'm really curious. Do men, is it a common thing for men to want to change women as much as we see women wanting to change their men?
I'm going to say yes. And I mean, it's funny because when you say that, something sprung to mind that I like a video that I watched recently. And there's a man who's like sitting on the couch, and his partner's like, can you please like help me clean up a bit? And he's like, I need to tell you about something. And he goes, there's something I need to show you. And he goes, okay, so I've been testing this out for weeks now. I just put all of the dirty like cups and cardboard boxes and everything. I just put it on this coffee table. Okay. And sometimes I really push it to the limit. Like I'll just fill it right up. And then I go to bed, and in the morning I wake up and it's completely gone. He's like, it's just magic. I don't know if it's just working for me or if it works for you as well. And she's looking at him like, are you serious? And he's like, yeah. And there's more. Like, you just put your dirty clothes like in the laundry basket. It's like they come back clean and folded on the end of the bed. Like, I don't know how it happens, but so, you know,
Very cute.
yeah, I thought that was quite funny when I saw that.
It's very cute. It's not quite how it happens in your world though, is it, Saul?
No, I'm usually the one doing the folding of laundry, but I don't mind.
So there's one more question for you, Saul, in the chat.
Yeah.
How have you learnt to communicate with Tiff in an honouring way without giving yourself up on a challenging or uncomfortable topic? I love that question. That's a great question.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you know, probably like most people, you know, if it needs to happen, it will happen, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't get like avoided or put to the side. But essentially, you know, the things that, you know, really matter either to me or Tiff will, like, you know, discuss and have those conversations where, you know, we're really vulnerable with ourselves and each other. I would say that's kind of the only way that I really know about it is to talk about it. That's the only way that I've kind of found that really works. And yeah, sometimes it takes a while for that to happen, but I think, you know, probably long before that, you both know that there's something going on, and you just might not have all of the awareness or the information. And then eventually it gets to a place where it's like, okay, it's time to talk about this. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess that's the best way I've found of dealing with that so far.
And not giving yourself up in that.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, if you're creating with anyone, it takes two to create, you know, a relationship of any kind. So it's always, even if it's something that's coming up for you, it's you know, obviously something that if it affects your relationship, then you know, it's something that's relevant to you both. So
thank you, Saul, for joining us this evening. Do you have any classes coming up if people are looking for you and wanting more of Saul Wyn-Jones?
Yeah, lots of things around the place. South Africa is the next destination, so I'm excited to be there. But yeah, you can go to saulwynjones.com and find out about any of my upcoming classes there.
Awesome.
Wonderful. And do you have anything going on with the Gentleman Creations that you'd like to talk about here?
Oh, well, if there's any gents watching, just send me a message. We have at the moment a like private Telegram thread just for gentlemen, and we've got lots of fun things going on there. So I'd say that's the best place to keep informed.
And I won't try and join with a false name, honestly.
Yeah,
She will.
get a little moustache, and I can see it.
She will. And now she's all keyed us into how to also do it. Cool. And if you could say one thing, you know, or one last thing, it doesn't have to be one thing, to ladies about how they can be more of a lady with a man or with men or with their men. So what would you say?
I mean, I think just being, I know it sounds so cliche, but like just being yourself, because you know, if you're trying to be something that you're not in order to get a man, eventually at some point in that relationship, it's going to get to a place where that's probably not going to work for you. So, you know, I would say like choose what works for you. And if you include you in the relationship, you're probably going to have a much better chance of having something, you know, with a man that actually works, whether it be a friendship or a romantic relationship or business, you know, whatever it is. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being our first and most special guest on Wealthy Wednesdays with Men.
Thanks for having me. How did I get so lucky to be your, you know, your virgin for slaughter or other things?
Love it. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Tiffy. Bye.